Hi, and welcome to New Moon Knitting. I'm Hillary, and today I'm talking all about my 2025 fall knitting plans. So it is officially September, which means it is time for my favorite season of knitting, which of course is fall knitting here in the Northern Hemisphere. I usually consider my fall knitting season September 1st through November 30th, so that 3-month period, even though it doesn't tend to cool down here until the end of September, on or after kind of the official vernal equinox date, start of fall. I find starting in early September gives me enough time to get some stuff close to off the needles so that that first chilly fall day, I'm ready to go with a new garment for the season. And then I can just continue to build on those items as the season goes on. Now, that being said that it's 3 months, I will say, just like a caveat, the projects and plans I have are going to definitely outstretch. I have more plans than I do time to finish them in that 3-month window. So I'm really looking at this as a planning for the next 6 months, most likely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with these projects in the fall. I'm going to see what I get through. And then on December 1st, what I'll do is I'll kind of look at what I got done in the fall and say what did I really like? What projects was I kind of avoiding starting? And then I'll pivot what I need to and, remove stuff, add stuff if I want for the winter season, which will be December, January, February, and then just keep rolling from there. So I think I have 14 or 15 items. I recognize that's way too much for one season, but if we look at this as technically 2 seasons, it's not crazy to think about finishing all of those things. My inspiration for this season, so like I do most times I'm planning knitting for a season, I started with what I had in my stash and kind of what yarns and colors and things were speaking to me. And it turns out just the season of life I'm in, I'm really inspired by neutrals right now. I know it's not super exciting. Sometimes people can find them boring, but when I went through my yarn stash, what appealed to me was browns and beige and black and cream. And so there's going to be a lot of that coming up. I also think that's kind of just what I have in my stash right now. I've cleared out a lot of the color over the last year. I've kind of focused on those projects. And so what's left is a lot of neutrals. And I also purchased some yarn in the last, my purchasing has shifted in the last 6 to 8 months where I'm just buying more neutrals. So that's what we're working with. There are some pops of color, but it's a pretty neutral color palette for the fall. I am also not immune to trends, and I was really inspired by a lot of what's been popular for a while as fisherman coated fish patterns and things like that. So there's definitely a little bit of a fisherman's vibe to a lot of what I ended up picking out. So I would say Gansey inspired sweaters. So that those sweaters with bands of texture in a single color. Also a couple of items with actual fish motifs. And then the other thing I noticed when kind of looking at the macro of the things that I'm interested in knitting this fall, it's there's some fun, bold color work, which kind of plays into that those fish motifs, but there's some other examples too of I just want some high contrast, neutral again, but high contrast color work as well to add to my wardrobe. So there is one more thing that did kind of affect what kind of patterns I wanted to work on. And I mentioned this briefly in my other video, but I am pregnant right now, which is great and very exciting. But it also means that I'm in kind of a weird place with making knitting plans because, I started knitting garments for myself in 2021. And since then, the shape of my body has been fairly stable. It hasn't really shifted. So I know if I spend a lot of time, if I invest money in a sweater, I'm probably going to get a lot of wear out of it for a long time. And now I'm kind of in this place where like, I don't fully know what my body's going to look like in, 6 months. And, there will be rapid change, and I don't know what the end of the journey is going to look like. And so trying to find some garments, because I love knitting garments that are going to work with me in this kind of transitional phase of my life and hopefully work for me afterwards, was a little bit more complex than like the considerations I would normally take when picking out patterns. So I think I did a pretty good job. I tried to pick like oversized knits that will be like, they'll stretch, but like they will also be super cozy after the pregnancy to just like wear around. I tried to pick some more cardigans than I normally would, because I figure those you can wear kind of open until they fit again. And then I was really looking at things where I could include like higher split seams on the sides. Like if I wanted to do high split seams on like a sweater or something, just to give the fabric like extra space to expand when the time comes when I need that extra space in my garments. So yeah, it's definitely like a new thing to think about. Definitely is maybe something I'll never have to think about again when I do one of these. Like obviously our bodies are always in flux and they change, but yeah, making sure that I'm creating things that will last past this time in my life is important to me. So, all right, so let's go ahead and talk about my whips. So I have 2 whips following me into the fall. The first is the Prism Blanket by Purl Soho. This is a modular knit garter stitch blanket that's created by building these little corner to corner squares in multiple colors. The pattern is free by Purl Soho, and the yarn recommended is Purl Soho's Good Wool Sport Weight yarn with a gauge of 22 stitches and 44 rows over 4 inches. It's knit on a US 6. And now that I've told you all the details of the pattern, just ignore them because I didn't do any of those. I am using Cascade Yarns Refine. This is a superwash, merino, nylon, and viscose blend recycled superwash, all made of recycled materials. I'm using a bunch of colors, and yeah, my plan is to try to do one of these squares a week so that I should hopefully have it done by like end of the year, maybe beginning of next year. So far I have one whole band of colors. So like I said, I'm using Cascade Yarns Refine. That is a fingering weight, not a sport weight. So I'm using a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter needle instead of the US 6 for this. And my squares are a little bit smaller because of that, and because I knew I wanted to have a slightly smaller size for these so that I would end up with a 40 inch by 40 inch blanket. So yeah, so this is where I am so far, hoping I will have this done by December 31st, but we will see. And then the second pattern, real quick, I have some vanilla socks for my husband. These are for our anniversary, which is at the end of September. This is Optic Yarns Cashmere. It's a merino wool cashmere nylon blend, superwash merino cashmere nylon blend. I'll put the name of the color if I can find the band. But yeah, super cute little socks for my husband for our anniversary. So those should be done by the end of the month. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into projects. So the first category I have is sweaters. I have 2 sweaters planned. The first is the Boulevardier by Thea Coleman. This is I believe it's a top-down drop shoulder sweater with all over texture on it. The pattern is $8. It uses DK weight yarn. The gauge is 20 stitches and 28 rows over 4 inches. The recommended yarn is Julie Asselin Melange number 1, but I am using Green Mountain Spinnery's Music, which is a DK weight yarn, and this color is called Diamond and Rust. So it's this really pretty like reddish brown rust color. I got this at Maryland Sheep and Wool this year, and I'm very excited to use it. I think the flecks are gonna look really nice with that textured pattern that this has. The needle size is a US 6. It comes in 11 sizes to fit a 41 to a 74.5 inch bust with 8 inches of positive ease recommended. I will probably knit the second or the third size, just kind of depending on how much ease I want. I kind of fall in between those two. I might knit the larger size just to give myself a little bit of more positive ease. And this is one where I might try to do a split hem on this to just give it like some more space at the bottom so it doesn't cinch in too much. So very excited about this. Really excited to use this yarn. This was like the one thing I wanted to buy at Maryland Sheep and Wool this year. And so yes, that will be a very great project. So the other sweater I want to knit is it's complicated. I love this pattern. This is the Cardigans. I think I'm pronouncing that kind of correctly, but it is a top-down raglan worsted weight sweater with these big bands of color work by Ralma Designs. The problem is it's only available in a kit. So you have to buy the pattern and the yarn from them. I really don't want to buy yarn. I want to use yarn I have in my stash. I have yarn that would work. So it's worsted weight, 18 stitches over 4 inches is the gauge. The yarn that you get in the kit is Ralma 5, but I want to use this Lion brand fisherman's wool in the colors natural brown and natural. So I think this would be really pretty. I really like the style of that. So my plan is, I think I'm going to use the Knitting Fools sweater pattern generator to get me started. So I'll share a link to that resource, but basically you can put in your gauge from a swatch and kind of what your bust measurement is and what you want your ease to be, and it'll give you like a very basic raglan sweater you can make. It doesn't have short row shaping, like there's not a lot to it, but it's like a really good way to like get an idea for what you need. So I'm gonna use that as like a starting point, and I think I'm gonna try to reverse engineer this pattern because I looked for so long on Ravelry to find something that gave me like the same vibe, and I just couldn't find anything that made me happy. So if you like this pattern, if you want to knit it, it does come in 7 sizes, which accommodate a 41.5 to a 63 inch bust. I'm sure the kit is great and everything. It's just, I really don't want to buy any more yarn right now. I'm still like technically trying to stash down. And so, but I want this sweater so bad. So I'm going to try to reverse engineer it. We'll see. It'll be a fun experiment. We'll see how it comes out. But yeah, that'll be maybe a good time, maybe a bad time. Who knows? All right. 2 patterns in and we are off the rails. But we're going to go ahead and move on to my next category, which is cardigans. I have 2 cardigans that I have planned for this fall. The first is the Max cardigan by Colberry by Joanna. The cost of this pattern is 6.99 euros, or about $8.53 in American USD. The yarn weight is a DK, 20 stitches and 27 rows over 4 inches for the gauge. It recommends a fingering and a lace held together. The yarns it recommends are Mayflower, Super Kid Silk, and Hobby Soft Alpaca. I am going to use my Hulsgarn Super Soft in the color Graphite and in the color Nougat. So I'm going to use these 2 colors. And then I have 2 mohairs. This is from All You Knit Is Love in Barcelona. And the color is called Bokeh, B-O-K-E-H. This is a skein I caked, and then I got rid of the yarn band, and that was silly. But it's this pretty, it's got like a little bit of a pink undertone, but I think it'll go really well with that nougat color. And then this is Drops Kid Silk, I think just in the color black. I have a bunch of this. So that should get me gauge and look really nice. Yeah, I really like this pattern. I love the bold kind of horizontal and vertical striping. I think the vertical stripes are done with double knitting. I think you just knit the horizontal stripes as you go, looking at like a couple of pictures of the pattern in progress. But yeah, it looks like a super, I love the big like graphic kind of print of it. I'm very excited. Knit on a US 7, which is a 4.5 millimeter, and a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter needle. Comes in 8 sizes, which accommodates a 36 to a 53 inch bust. I'm gonna knit the 3rd size, I think, which is a 40 inch bust. Should give me about 6 inches of positive ease. But yeah, I am excited for that one. So yeah, that's the Max cardigan. And the other cardigan I want to make this fall is the Staffin by Rebecca Clow. So this is a pattern that is $7 pounds, Great British pounds, or about $9.86 American. It's a worsted weight pattern. It is 16 stitches and 26 rows over 4-inch gauge. The suggested yarn is Rauma Fivel, and I am going to use my Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool. Again, I have enough of this to do a sweater and a cardigan, so I'm going to try to use it for both. The Staffin is really cool because it's like an all over textured sweater, but the pattern comes with a bunch of variations. So it comes with a sweater and a cardigan and a vest, and I think like a button down vest. So I think maybe sometimes those are called like a pullover and a vest, but I really like that. So I'm going to knit the cardigan version. Recommended needle size, US 8, which is 5 millimeter needles. Comes in 13 sizes, which accommodates a 38.5 to a 70.75 inch bust. I think I'm going to knit the 2nd size. And yeah, that should be a nice project. I think like that texture in this kind of dark brown is going to look, it's going to be real subtle, but I think it's going to be really nice and like a nice staple piece to have in my wardrobe. The next category I have are vests. I have 2 vests or slipovers. The first is the Ingrid slipover by Petite Knit. This is an all over textured, again, similar Gansey inspired slipover or vest pattern. The cost is 50 Danish kroner, which is about $8.17 American. It is a worsted weight pattern. The gauge is 20 stitches and 30 rows over 4 inches. The pattern recommends a lace and a DK held together, and it actually suggests quite a few yarns. But I am going to use this My Maine Farm Girl worsted weight yarn. So this is some yarn I picked up while I was at home visiting my mom. She lives in New Hampshire, but we drove up to Maine one day and we stopped at this little yarn store, and they had this this yarn from a very local dyer. So fiber from the Bittersweet Heritage Farm flock, custom spun together because life is not just black and white. So I don't think the yarn has a name, it's just their worsted weight, and this color is called oatmeal. But I thought this would be a really nice yarn to use for, again, I think these like natural colors just look really nice with that texture. And the little bit of like flecks of darker colors, it just looks will just look really nice and bring out kind of the dimensions of that vest. So that'll be the Ingrid slipover. Other things to know about this pattern: uses a couple needle sizes, kind of depending, I think, if you're doing the ribbing and things like that. US 2.5, which is a 3 millimeter, US 4, 3.5 millimeter, and a US 6 or 4 millimeter needle. It comes in 9 sizes, accommodating a 30.5 to a 59 inch bust. I'm probably going to knit the 2nd size. So yeah, this is also another pattern, the Ingrid, where I'm going to try to do a split hem on the sides. Try to do that and like work the bottom flat. I think that might look nice. So, Ingrid slip over. My next pattern is the Make Myself Flowers vest by Vexnot Studio. So this is a little vest that has like these big color work. I think they're intarsia, like flowers on them. It feels very like 70s to me, very like these big bold flower motifs. The pattern is $9 American. It is knit with Aran weight yarn. I think it uses a fingering and a worsted held, or a lace and a worsted held together, Rowan Kids Silk Haze, and then Woolen the Gang Shiny Happy Cotton. The gauge is 15 stitches and 20 rows over 4 inches. I think I'm going to use this Lamb's Pride worsted, which is I think it's 85% wool, 15% mohair, and worsted weight yarn. And I'm gonna pair it with this Cascade 220 that I just had lying around, I think left over from a sweater I made last year. I probably won't get gauge with these held alone. I'm gonna try to see if I can get gauge with just these, but if not, I should have enough of this Drops Kid Silk in this color black to hold with this. And I do have leftovers of like a gray mohair I can hold with this as well to bulk up those a little bit. So I'm gonna do gray base with black flowers. Again, super neutral, but I think because it's such a fun pattern, it'll look really cute together. So yeah, that'll be fun to work on. I'm excited to work on that. So we will go ahead and move on to accessories. I think I have 5 accessories that I want to try to make in the upcoming months. The first is a pair of fingerless mitts. These are the Fingerless Mittens pattern by Iris H. This is a free knitting pattern for DK weight yarn. The gauge is 22 stitches and 30 rows over 4 inches. So the pattern calls for Sandnes Garn, Double Sunday. I am going to use 2 yarns held together, a fingering and a mohair, the Cascade Heritage in the color highlighter yellow, and the Periwinkle Sheep Volca in the color Crisis Management. So those are those 2 colors held together. They are in a ball because I used these already this summer to make my Kara Moots beanie. And so I thought it'd be really cute to have a little pair of mittens to go with that. So I have like a little set that I can wear out in just the brightest color yellow you've ever seen. What else? Needle size, US 4, which is 4.5 millimeter, and a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter, and a US 7, which is a 4.5 millimeter. It comes in, mitts come in 6 sizes that fit a 6 to 11 inch hand to circumference. I am going to knit the 2nd size. And yeah, that's it for my fingerless mittens. Next up, I have 2 fish and fish inspired accessories. The first is the Halibut Cowl by Caitlin Hunter. This is a pattern that is $6 American. It is a DK weight pattern with a gauge of 20 stitches and 28 rows over 4 inches. The recommended yarn is Kelborn Woolen's Scout. I am going to use 2 actually worsted weight yarns that I got at 2 different yarn stores called Loop. The first is Loop in Philadelphia, and this is their Flora, which is 100% superwash merino wool in the color Ice Cream. And the second I got in Loop in London, and this is Uncommon Thread Lush Worsted, which is an 80% merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon in the color B105, so this pretty brown color. So I'm going to use these 2 yarns. The pattern calls for a US 5 and a US 6, but I'm probably going to knit these on like a US 8 or whatever makes sense to get the right kind of gauge for a worsted weight cowl. So I'll play around with that and do some gauge swatching and things like that. So the pattern only comes in 1 size, but I want to use all of this yarn. I don't want to have any leftovers. So I think I'm going to do 2 things. One, I'm going to like double knit, not using double knitting, but I'm going to knit the cowl as it is, and then I'm going to knit it again, and I'm going to join those in a loop. I'm going to seam the edge together so that like on one side it's brown fish with a white background, and on the other side it's white fish with a brown background. I think that'll look really cute. So yeah, I think that'll be nice. And I also may make it a little bit longer, add like 1 or 2 additional fish in there. So we'll see how that goes, but I think that'll be a nice little cowl to have for the fall and winter. And I was so inspired, I was like, oh, what if I had a pair of fish mittens to go with my fish cowl? And so I had this, again, I lost the band because I caked these up like 2 years ago thinking I was going to use it. But I have this really nice, it's 100% alpaca wool in a sport weight that I got at the Frederick Fiber Festival a couple of years ago. And it's not exactly the same colors, but it's the same idea, a brown and a white. And so I am going to make the Trout Mittens by Claire Bushkowski. This is a free pattern, but it only comes in one size. The yarn gauge is 8.5 stitches over 1 inch. And the recommended yarn is Ralma Funilgarn or Frog Tree Alpaca Sport Weight. I am going to change the cuff on these. I'm just going to do like a regular ribbed cuff, and the recommended size is for like an adult male. So what I'm going to do to try to get them to fit better is, rather than using the recommended needle size, which is a US 1.5 or 2.5 millimeter, I'm going to use a US 0. I think that should make them tight enough, but it's a free pattern, so it'll be like, I don't know, a fun little experiment, and hopefully I'll have a little pair of fish mittens to go with my little fish cowl to have a wonderful little fish season. Up next, I have one hat, a beanie that I want to make this fall, and that is the Perfect Day Beanie by Veronica Lindberg. This is a pattern that costs €4.90 or about $5.98 American. It is a DK weight pattern, 18 stitches and 29 rows over 4 inches is the gauge. The pattern recommends a couple of different yarns, actually 3 yarns held together, a light fingering and 2 lace. I am going to use a fingering and a lace held together. So these are 2 yarns I got at Firebird Yarns in San Francisco. The first is this fingering weight seismic yarn Butter Sock in the color Mingo. And the second is Firebird Yarn's own Baby Surrey. It's called Air Lace Baby Surrey and Silk Blend. So I'm going to hold these together to make the hat. Pattern only comes in one size. It's knit on a US 6. So my plan is to use that. I was just trying to try out a bunch of like kind of similar hat patterns like to the Cara Moots, and I've made the Oslo hat. But what's nice about this is they come in more than one size. So I'm considering just using one I already have and just knitting that. But I've never knit anything by Veronica Lindberg, so I was interested in trying her patterns to see what her pattern writing style is like. So it's definitely going to be like a double folded brim stockinette beanie. I just don't know which one it's going to be. And as of right now, I'm thinking it's going to be the Perfect Day beanie, but we'll see. So that's the only hat I'm going to be working on. And then I have one pair of socks. So I started these socks this summer. These are it's really kind of going to be hard to see, but these are the Surf Wax socks by Summer Lee. And I like the pattern, but I don't think this yarn is doing it justice. I think this yarn is too dark to really appreciate the texture, especially because it's on a sock. Like, people aren't going to be that close to my feet, hopefully, to see this pattern. So my plan is to frog this and make a colorwork sock. So the yarns I have are this Universal Yarns Pace in the color Bark, and I believe this is Cascade Heritage in the color White, but I found this little ball in my like scrap stash, and I'm not 100% sure, but that's usually, if it's a unnamed white yarn, that's probably what it is. So I haven't decided. I wanted to include it because it is like a plan that I have. I haven't finalized what socks I'm going to make though. I'm either going to do the pressed flowers socks, or I'm going to do the Wild Wool Trail socks. I have made them before, and I just really like the Wild Wool Trail socks. And I think this color palette would really look nice in that kind of like sturdy hiking sock. So it's kind of what I'm leaning towards. But again, I do want to make those socks before it gets too cold, like right around the time I'm starting to wear my boots again. We'll see which one I pick. So those are all of the accessories that I want to make this fall. All right, we are in the home stretch. We only have 2 patterns left, and they are 2 gift knits I want to make. So the first is a Christmas gift that I would like to make. It is the Coral Reef Scarf by Lisa Haynes. This is a pattern that costs €6.50 or about $7.93 American. It is a DK weight pattern, and it's this all over, like, kind of cabled, kind of textured scarf that comes in 2 sizes. The gauge is 24 stitches and 24 rows over 4 inches. The recommended yarn is Cardiff Cashmere Classic. I will be using Amano Skinny Yana in the color Olive and Rising Tide Fiber Company's Montgomery Mohair in the color Old Salt. These are yarns that I frogged from a sweater I started last year. It was the turtleneck sweater by Naringarook. So that's why they're kind of already balled up together, is because they were previously in a sweater together and I didn't want to try to separate the mohair from the wool yarn. So there are 2 different sizes. I'll probably knit the smaller size. I think it'll just be more practical for the person I'm knitting this for, but I know they really like this olive green color. This mohair is not too scratchy. So I think this will be fine to have like against your neck for like a scarf for the winter. My last plan for the fall/winter is I want to make a baby cardigan for my friend who is expecting. So I want to make the Ingrid cardigan by Rilla Runt. This is a free pattern. It is a DK weight pattern. The gauge is 23 stitches and 29 rows over 4 inches. The recommended yarn is Golden Fleece Carter's Cotton DK. I will be using I will be using Lion Brand Respun. This is a 100% recycled polyester yarn in the color, I think it's called Blush or Rose or Blush Rose. But I've had this for like 3 years and I've lost the band. Kind of an ongoing thing with my projects. But anyway, I'm getting it out of stash. This is a good workhorse yarn for like kid and baby knits because you can machine wash and dry it. So the pattern comes in 4 sizes for 0 to 12 months. I am going to knit the first size, which is for 0 to 3 months. And this is just a really cute little raglan cardigan with some like lace detailing. Really sweet. I want to try to get it to my friend for her baby shower, which is in early October. So this will be a priority in September to get it done and out on time. Okay, that is everything. Like I said, it is too much for 3 months. There is no way I'm going to finish these things. But I'm really happy to have a plan. And I think like based on what there is in here, there's definitely a lot that can just carry over into the winter and will be totally fine. And maybe I'll have less work to do come early December on what I want to work on for the next 3 months. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of what I'm doing, if you want to see how successful I am with my fall knitting plans, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe. So that's all I have for today. I will see you in the next one.